Hi, it's Gadget UK here again. This time an exciting parcel from Sparks UK, but it came from Denmark stuff. So yeah, DigiKey packaging here. That's Sparks' usual thing, which is good. I'm a fan of that. And yeah, recycling packaging is always a good thing. So what have we got here? We've got some components there. That might be for the SID card. I'm not sure. When I say SID card, I'm talking about some of the spectrum, so you can have a SID. Then we've got a PCB here. So is this the 386? I think it is. So yeah, if you haven't gathered already from the video title, we've got a CPU card. I'm going to say CPU card, I mean a PC card for an Amiga stuck in there. Look. Yeah, so there we go. Isn't that lovely? 386 card. Now these have been looked at by someone else, so there's a very high probability I am not going to be able to repair these. There's a bit of corrosion, a bit of corrosion here, look. It's been fixed, I think, from where the battery was. That's now socketed. I'm not sure that would have been socketed originally. Anyway, it's going to be interesting to have a look at that. Yeah, so I think there's two of these, so I'll put them back in its SD bag. I think the real question with these is whether we can find the chipset for them, because they use, as you saw there, I don't know what make it was, a PC chipset. Let's have a look at this. Is this the same thing? Yeah, this is the other one. Yeah, VLSI is the manufacturer on the chips here. Yeah, so a lot more corrosion on this one here, but again, it's been fixed. That's been socketed. Makes me think that's been done by him. Perhaps on the underside. I'm not sure if those are normally located on the underside. They're probably relocated for the socket there, actually. We've got a wire fix there with some solder mask holding it on. But ultimately, I think Hesse thought it was these, actually. Although I'm seeing a bit of corrosion on that doesn't look so clever there. Yeah, so we might need to try and hunt a PC motherboard that's got these on and break the PC motherboard in order to fix this. And then the final one, which will be another video, I think. If this is what I think it is. Yeah, look, it's an MPEG card here. So, yeah, we'll have a look at that in another video. Now, I don't hold high hopes of fixing these. From what I understand, suspected problems with the main VLSI chips on here. These have been to someone else already. So these boards kindly came from Stefan Skotte over in Denmark. There were 4 of these boards originally. You can see the repair logs here from the person that previously looked at them. Now, when someone's worked on a board previously and they've done quite a lot of work, rework, you end up having to question that work, even though he did a really good job. So my approach, as you'll see through this series, is to go through, look for areas of corrosion, deal with issues there, but also look at where the board has been previously reworked and potentially investigate there, lift sockets, lift chips, etc. And picking these up here, I wasn't aware there were layouts available for the board, layout of the actual PCBs. But it's very difficult when you're working on something that's been worked on before, because you do have to question, the work that's been done. Was something missed? It's not that a good job wasn't done, but everyone makes mistakes. And as you'll see on these boards, there's quite a lot of patch work being done, fixing wires, traces, etc. Sockets have been removed, some of them replaced, some of them not. And all those things add lots of question marks in your mind, thinking, was something missed? Yeah, so we'll plug these into the 2000. It's already got Janus 2.1, I think it is, installed. Now I've got the wrist strap on. I'm not going to connect the floppy drive cable up at this stage. I'll just move that out of the way. Funnily enough, I've just been working on the A2386 board. That was a previous video that you may have seen. There'll be a link top right. Probably a 2-part series, that one, I think. And as I switch this on, I'll just show you, just in case anything goes up in flames here. I hope not. Yeah, and it's booting. Now I am of course assuming we don't need to reinstall the Janus software. I would think it would be exactly the same in terms of the way it works, and just detect it's a 386 card rather than a 286 card that we previously used with this hard disk. This compact flash card has been used with the A2286, and this is an A2386. There's a load of space there for zip RAM, isn't there? Tons of sockets. So yeah, you can expand these. It looks like to maybe 4 megabytes, I want to say. Could be wrong. So I might have to see if I can try and get some of that, but I'm guessing it's going to be the same RAM as on the 3000 and maybe the A2386, and that RAM is incredibly hard to find and it's costly as well. And there's different types of it, it's not all the same. So it didn't give me any Janus errors there, which kind of suggests that maybe it detected that card. So if we do PC colour, no, we might need to install Janus again, I think. Oh, that's going to be a pain. Yeah, so I'm a little bit confused by that. I kind of thought that that would just work. I didn't think I'd need to reinstall it all again. Let's just make sure nothing's getting hot. Yeah, nothing getting hot on there. Right, let's just remove that. It's got a small connector on the back of that as well. Is that for a keyboard? Okay. I don't know, why would you have a separate keyboard for it? Probably isn't. It's probably like for serial or parallel breakout or something. I don't know. Yeah, so there's a socket up here. Is that for a 387? Probably is. It's got a Western digital controller chip here for the floppy drive. There's a few different breakout things here. One of them's going to be for floppy drive, but I'm not sure what the others are for. Yeah, and you can see what I mean about the zip RAM here. Zigzag interleaved package. So I've got 4 of those. I'm guessing that's 1 meg. So I reckon you could put 4 on there. This doesn't have a DS1287 like the 286 version did, which means, well, you get corrosion. This is why I think it's been fixed all around here, because that would have had a varter on there that's leaked. Anyway, that one doesn't seem to do anything with the Janus, does it? We'll try the other one. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to have to maybe swap the compact flash card over and try and set Janus up again from floppy. I am pleasantly surprised. The other one gets a bit further here. So, yeah, that's the issue. The other one doesn't even do anything, does it? Check some error on extended CMOS. Last boot failed. Using default values. Now, there's no battery. Use PC reset to reset CMOS values. Let's do that. PC reset. PC colour. I think that's just gone nuts, hasn't it? Yes, it has. And this is the thing. This might be the reported problem with this card. I need to read back the notes that Stefan provided with these. Yeah, you can hear the PC doing something there, and then that sounded like a BIOS error, didn't it? Hang on. Check some error on extended CMOS. That actually makes me think that the CMOS RAM is balked, actually. 640k base memory, 0k extended, invalid configuration information. Right, let's just go into setup. I don't know, see what's what there. Control Alt Escape. So we've got date, time, diskette, hard disk, video, VGA, EGA. How does that work? Total DRAM on the Bridgeboard, 1 meg. No onboard extended memory if base memory less than 640k. Onboard DRAM, let's just expand this a little bit. Not used as base. Ext and shadow memory can be used for EMS. Oh, that's the most confusing bit of information ever. I think what that means is it's got a meg. You can't have any extended memory if base memory is less than 640k. But that makes sense anyway. If you've got less than the 640k, you aren't going to be having extended memory. So I don't know what that means. That's just the most pointless message in the world. And then the other one, onboard DRAM not used as a base. So out of that 1 meg, 640k of it is not used. Yeah. So in other words, it must have another 640k or another meg or something. Yeah, I think that's the case. I think it probably has 640k of base memory, and then it's got 1 meg, and that 1 meg can't be used for base memory. Can we use it as extended memory? I don't know. So we've got system speed high, DRAM wait state 0, page mode enabled, onboard ext memory. Warning, Reduce onboard memory to allow Janus to be shadowed. Yeah, so we got a, I don't know, I'm thinking we have got a meg, and this message here is a load of rubbish. If we reduce that, then Janus can be shadowed. So we probably need to add more memory in order to add some extended memory there. Offboard, yeah, so if you've got a memory card, you could stick that in and you could expand that there. That's quite cool. 16 meg, good god, you can go quite high. I need to try and find a memory board that's 16-bit ISA. VGA shadow bias enabled or disabled, bias shadow enabled disabled. Escape abort. End is, where's end? I didn't know there was an end key. Check some error on extended CMOS. I mean, that's failing to boot now, isn't it? Can you do Control Alt Delete? No, that's not doing anything. I mean, it seems to be doing less and less and less over time. Like, now I can't even get into setup. Like, Control Alt Escape. It's just not even doing anything now, is it? Has that crashed or frozen at that point? It may well have done. Right, just inspecting around the RAM, I'm not sure you're going to be able to see, there's like a particle of something red or brown or something in between a couple of the pins there. And they're squashed over at a weird angle, so it'd be really easy for some sort of contaminant to get there. Because right now it's not doing anything at all. It's like you're doing that, it freezes, you reset it and then it just freezes. So I'm honestly not sure what's going on. But anyway, I figure let's just have a clean around that RAM. And I think that that's the RAM that's used to, it might be video RAM actually, that, so it's probably barking up the wrong tree completely here. Obviously you can't get right down there, that's the problem, you can get down one of them and not the other. And in terms of CMOS, I don't see anything on here for holding settings. It's got to be like almost like system on a chip type thing where the CMOS RAM is in one of these, and if that's the case it's kind of going to be a game over unless we can find one of those. And I think that's the case with both of these, so it's going to be the shortest video in the world this, because if I can't find replacement chips, well, there's nothing to do really. It's frustrating to say the least. I mean, I can continue looking around this and inspecting where the fixes have been made according to the schematics to make sure we've not got like a missing trace or something, but I mean the intermittent nature, you know, there's a lot of fuzziness up here. It makes me think that maybe this needs a really good clean actually. I may, look at that pin there, that's a bit weird, that pin there is bent out away from the edge. Yeah, ultrasonic might help. Look at this here, there's some greeniness there on those chips, can you see that? It's like a bit of corrosion there. That might have something to do with it. So let's just clean those up. But you know what, I'm sure I inspected these when they arrived and I don't remember seeing that. Yeah, you can see the greeniness there, look. So let's just go over that with a fiberglass pencil. And then we'll go over it with a cotton bud and some IPA. Vinegar is the best thing, but I mean, I'm sure this will have been cleaned previously as part of the original repair and stuff. Well, repair attempt, because that's the thing. These have been attempted to be repaired, and these are the two that couldn't be, because I think Stefan sent like 5 or so of these to a chap who's pretty well known in the community. He's generally very good at fixing things. Look at all the dirt that came off around the sides of that chip. Anyway, you see, someone may have thought, no, corrosion won't get down here. Maybe they focused over there. Yeah, the solder points look alright. But you know what, if it's got onto those 4 pins there, it could have got anywhere. So I may just, what I may do is ultrasonic it at an angle like that in the thing. Just do one side, then do up here in the ultrasonic, like tilted at an angle, just to get the edges ultrasonicked. That might make a difference. Anyway, we'll try it like that now, just see what difference that makes, if any. And you can see it still looks a bit of a state here on the underside. There's the odd fix wire here. Nicely done, actually. He's done a really nice job of the fine fixed traces and things that he's laid out on there. I don't know whether he's swapped these to work out they are faulty or not. This is the thing. And everything's so tightly packed in there, it's really hard to work on something like this. There's a wee bit more corrosion there, look. I'm just going to give that a go with fiberglass pencil as well, and do the same thing with the vinegar. Yeah, it's not vinegar, IPA. And if you don't get in between the pins, if there is contamination between the pins, it stays there. Yeah, those ones there that were corroded are going to need tinning up, because they are looking ready now, you know, coppery, just there. Anyway, let's just wipe the top of that. Let's give it a try. I mean, that's the Commodore chip, isn't it? Yeah, so it's one of the ones that Janus uses to interface with the PC side. And from what I understand, we're thinking that it's the VLSI chips that are the issue. Anyway, that's back in. And let's power it back on. Yeah, and the interesting thing is, I think at this point it's not booting, it's failing to boot. I heard a click as if that was being reset, but then the IDE LED stops here. This is what happens when it's kind of waiting for that card. We'll just wait and see what happens. Maybe it will boot up, maybe it's just going to take an inordinate amount of time here. Just like it did when we reset it manually in Workbench. Might be waiting for some sort of interrupt response or something. So we'll just leave that a second. And there was no error about Janus or anything like that, so... Well, not yet. Is it going to do it here? No, it has booted. But I think maybe it's stuck there, like it was before. Check some error on extended CMOS. Yeah, that mini DIN connector on the back is not a keyboard connector, just ultrasonic in each end of the board here. Right, I think what I'm going to do next, although I think it is a VLSI chip that's at fault, is swap the gals over, actually. I just need to check they're the same revisions and things. I think they probably are. You can see a bit of corrosion there, can you see that? When I cleaned around there, there is a bit of fuzziness up here. Right, so I've swapped two of those around. The ones on the bottom down there. I'm just going to work my way around this side where the corrosion is, so we'll do those ones next. But I suspect ones up here, maybe for, you know, connectivity stuff, they might not do anything else. And the problems with these, can you see that looks green? Yeah, it's greeny. This is the one where the chip, when I just put it in the other one, it doesn't work at all on the other one. The chip's nice and clean. I cleaned it up and tried it at the same time, it still didn't work. So I think this chip here might be faulty. It depends what happens now when this boots up with its original chip back in. If it boots again, that kind of tells me that chip's faulty. But there's some greeniness around here that needs cleaning up, a new socket fit in there. So yeah, everything has not been removed around these areas. It's the same with the one up here, there's some furriness up here around those chips on the board we are looking at. So it might not be a main custom at fault here. It could be either connectivity or, you know, the actual gals. Yeah, it's got a different behaviour there, but I've seen that on this board before. This is one of the issues with this board, I think. You reset it and then usually it'll be alright after you've closed that and gone back in again. No, so it's not that, is it? There is something else on that card that is being intermittent. So annoying. And of course the obvious thing is, you know, try and scope things. Well, when this is in a slot, try and scope these pins side on. It's near impossible. It's near impossible. You want it flat on a board like that, where you can get magnification over it. So yeah, I'm very hard to work on these for sure. So honestly, not really sure what to do at this stage. I'm going to try and apply some hot air, 50 degrees. Just wait for it to cool down a little bit. Sorry, 150 degrees, not 50 degrees. And I'm just going to proceed to reset it as we warm different ICs up. That's one of the main ICs I'm just heating there, PC reset. PC colour, click, PC colour. Nope, let's just move around the Commodore customs here, because we did see some corrosion around one of them. Maybe it just needs a reflow. Not doing anything at all, even though it's got its original chips back in here now. It's just failing to boot, but you know what, it's been doing that intermittently anyway. I'm going to reflow these two sides here. Then I may do that one, I don't know, or this one up here. But anyway, I'm going to reflow those two sides there. This stuff here, ultimately, I think I would take off, because there's lots of fuzziness. I don't know if you can see, like white furriness and stuff around these caps. The pins on these, I've took these out, they look a bit greeny. So like those sockets have not been off. This is the thing. And you can think that a fault is not related to something on the board because it's to do with I/O or something else, but you'd be surprised. So it could be something further afield here. I mean, there's turn pin, isn't it? But that socket hasn't been off. This one, yeah, it's not far away, is it? But we did get corrosion all the way up here as well, so you could argue maybe reflow those. But you know what, the solder points do look good on that. No clues from heating, you know, just gently heating an area. But anyway, I'm just going to reflow those, I think. Yeah, so wrist strap is on, and it's a case of, yeah, just carefully dragging downwards like that. The interesting thing is those pins all made like click, 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 click as I was doing it, as if maybe it was applied with hot air. So maybe it has been swapped out. Anyway, we've got a bridge on the end now I need to deal with. 3 pins joined together, but yeah, anyway, we're almost there. I'll report back in a minute. Yeah, it made sizzling noises on both sides. More on this side though. As I went around that, you know, that's corrosion reacting with the flux. I don't know, but anyway, right now it's not been booted for a while, has it, since we swapped the gowls, but it's got its original gowls back on. And the pins up there look a bit grey as well. Anyway, I'm just going to inspect that for shorts and then we'll give it a try. Well, after doing that, it worked first time. It worked first time, really. Right, but it's set up as mono because I did change that over to mono a minute ago. Let's change it back to colour again. Colour, colour enabled, monochrome disabled, save, yep, PC reset, PC colour. Oh, hang on a minute, we've got colour now as well. Not only is that full screen, it is in colour. Wasn't doing that before. There we go. So, well, is it going to freeze there now? Seemingly. So there's still some sort of issue, but having reflowed around that seems to have made a difference. Whether it's because the chip's hot, that's a thing, but then again I heated it up and it didn't make any difference, did it? Yeah, so it's just, why does it freeze here, look? That's what I don't get. Why does it go full screen? That's what I don't understand. Anyway, it's a bit better. Whether or not it remains that bit better, I don't know. And obviously we can't get past there, can we? This makes me think RAM though, because it's like, why? Oh, let's just put it back in mono, see if the settings work. You know, can we get into the setup? Because this is the thing, when it was on mono here, and we did that, and we did save, and we say okay, and then we reset, and we do PC mono. Does it behave any different in terms of, can we get into the setup? Check somewhere on extended CMOS. No, it's doing the same thing, isn't it? There's some sort of error occurring after it does the memory check. Now I'm thinking the next obvious thing would be floppy drive. So maybe the controller, I'm just going to press that controller. you know, it's like some I/O issue going on there at that point. So there may be two issues here. I guess what I could do is maybe get one of, mind you, it's posted, isn't it? I was going to say get one of those postcards. Yeah, not the type that you send when you're on holiday. You can get a card that's yeah, designed for power on self-testing. But it is posting, so, and this is the thing, Amiga control and Alt control and escape doesn't do anything. This is the thing. But it does usually on a first boot. Why is it only the first boot? Is it just a case of because the CMOS is messed up and you can't reset the CMOS? Well, where is the CMOS? There's no separate RAM chip or something on this, or an MV flash. It's got to be internal to that PC, you know, the VTI, whatever it is. It's got to be internal to the VLSI chip, I think. Yeah, anyway, maybe what I should do is reflow the other two sides of that chip as well, actually. Because, you know, we definitely made some progress by doing that. The other interesting thing is the sound stuff as well. Is like, when it was working, we had the beep, we heard the sound. But maybe that's because it got a little bit further. Whereas now we're not getting that. Now we get stuck after the memory check. The interesting thing there is I just wobbled the zip RAM before I did that reset. So you know what? That zip RAM might be something to do with this. Yeah, so we got there, we've now got sound. Let's see if we can get set up again. Control, Alt, Escape. Let's try changing the DRAM wait states. 1. No, it's sticking there now again, look. So the surprising thing is with these have been cleaned up by whoever worked on them last, but there is corrosion. I keep spotting it in the light. It's like there. There's like 7 or 8 pins with corrosion. So, and they look like maybe there's a bad solder point. Yeah, there's definitely what looks like corrosion down there. I'm not saying this guy has done this on all of them, but just 1 or 2 of these, it's like corners seem to have been cut, because there's definitely corrosion down there. And I actually wonder if those pins actually need a reflow, to be honest. I'll just have an inspection under magnification. I mean, look at this one, right? I've managed to swap all the chips from each board, but look at the socket here. Can you see that? Can you see the green? Like really green. And it was the same with 1 or 2 around here. The pals and gals and things around here. I found the odd green, really dark green pin on this board, yeah, including up here. So, you know, I've had contact cleaner in some of these things, but all of the chips have been swapped that are socketed, including the RAM, yeah, and some of the RAM was dark grey. And after having cleaned the RAM up and reinstalled the RAM, this is when this does boot, it now reports the extra 1 meg. Which you can assign as extended. So there's still corrosion on these, is the bottom line. It's the same thing down here. We've got green furriness. That's pretty noticeable. The pins look awful down there. I think that needs resoldering. I think that needs resoldering, if I'm honest. I actually think that is going to be the problem. It's this custom. And of course it's a Commodore chip, this. It's not the PC architecture. Right, anyway, I've had a bit of a scrub around that with vinegar. I'm tempted to just retry it. And of course someone may have done connectivity testing and ruled those things out. But it's whether you're measuring pin to pin. You know, that's the problem really. Because between pins there might be just a bit of resistance. It might not be a short, but there might be resistance. And when you get resistance between connections, yeah, that can cause all sorts of weird and wonderful problems. Anyway, whatever it is, it's intermittent, so I'll just keep at this. It makes me wish I had a larger ultrasonic cleaner, because I would definitely stick the whole board in the ultrasonic for 5 minutes or something, I think. Yeah, and I'm sure that that's the issue with this one. It's around that chip, because if we do PC colour now, hang on a sec. Why it's in a window like that, I don't know, because this is the thing, I haven't specified a window, but PC reset. More often than not, yeah, this wouldn't be doing very much at all. So, yeah, the behaviour has changed completely from doing that, so I'm just going to get some flux around the chip now. And yeah, before I give up and go and watch some TV before bed. Right, I've got to show you this. There's some strange things going on with this. The solder, I'll show you in the light in a minute, the solder on the points on this chip here are awful. And then I just looked underneath, it's off the board a bit. Okay, you're on macro, trying to hold the light. Can you see that big blob of solder under there? That is ridiculous. It is almost shorting, so the pin's to the right of it. Looking at the schematics here, what does that 74LS646 do? I believe it's a register. If you look at it on the schematics, one side of it, the B side, it's not even connected, which means it's got to be just used as a register. And if you look at where it's connected, the DPM data connections, they go to the RAM as well, the zip RAM, and that whole bus goes to one of the Commodore customs. So I think this is where, you know, it's storing the video RAM in these zip RAM chips. The Commodore custom there is going to be obviously writing the video data and reading video data in and out of that RAM. But I think there are two banks of it. I think there's more RAM than you would actually need for CGA and MDA. And I think data gets passed in and out of like a small window of that RAM, maybe 64K. And system settings, maybe to the video, are probably stored in that register as well. Now, because it's so far off the board, and I may just remove it with some hot air, we can actually sneak some solder braid underneath it, right to the point of it, press it into it, heat the braid, and try and absorb it from the outside, because that's my main concern here at the moment. I mean, how does that even happen? I don't know. Can I get anything flattened there? What I really need to do is push it out from that end. You know what, I'm getting cheesed off with it. I am just going to pull that chip off. So I'm going to heat from the underside here. And just, I'll try and grab onto it first. There we go. I know what's going to happen now. That blob of solder's going to run off onto my leg, isn't it? Right, I'm going to Captain tape off this socket. Right, typically the camcorder just filled up as I removed that with hot air. Look at the size of that blob of solder that was underneath it. So yeah, I don't know whether the resistor array has survived there or not, I'll check that. And pads seem alright, I think, although here it looks a bit questionable. Sorry. Yeah, so anyway, let that cool down for a bit, get rid of that germ blob of solder. I'm going to get a socket on. Sockets, you know, those things people use, like these here. Why on earth did someone... I actually think they didn't get it off. That's what I think. I think this didn't come off. It was a failed removal. Anyway, that blob can't have been helping. But it was like right in the middle here, and I saw some little blobs next to it, and it looked like it was short into one of these pins. So that might be the entire problem. Right, so I cleaned up around there. You can see where the corrosion has been affected by the heat. So anyway, I'm going to get a socket on. So temporarily I've got a new F646 on here. I've ordered some of the ones. It seems a wee bit better. I'm not sure that is the problem, but as you can see, I've been running the speed test thing here. And this has been going on for maybe 10 minutes, and it's dead reliable. Now if I Control-Alt-Delete it, that's when the problems start. I have to reset it a number of times. And I'll show you in a minute, there's a pattern with the Janus software that if you go into the prefs, you change something, save it, and then it says you need to reset it, you reset it, change the settings back, reset it, then it's alright. And that happens when you first boot it up, that it doesn't work, and so you've changed some Janus settings, changed them back, and reset it a couple of times, so then after this, you know, change the settings back and then reset it, then it works. So, I don't know. It's like, it's giving me a clue though. It's giving me a clue. I'm thinking maybe something's not getting a reset somewhere on the board, or maybe it's something to do with how the Amiga controls it, because when it doesn't work, when you first power it on, you hear the beep, but there's no video, as if it's booted, but maybe the video side's messed up. Now that could be because the BIOS defaults to VGA, yeah, not colour 80 or colour 40. Anyway, this other socket, I've just cleaned that up, but you can still see the pins look green. I'm not sure if it's green paint from solder mask that's been applied, but I've used vinegar on that. It's not going any cleaner. So that is a little bit mysterious. Anyway, because all of the chips have been taken off this and put onto the other one, I know they're all good on this one. So I'm going to get the chip back in here, and lots of them had dirty legs, by the way, as I cleaned them up. So you never know, this may now spring back to life. And just have a look at the other board. Can you see we've got like a dry joint there? and I just touched that pin and it moves. So actually that needs resoldering. There's a hair there, look. Anyway, yeah, this one is just coming up with the, you know, Janus libraries failed to load kind of thing when you try and run any of the software. You can see some work has been done to this one as well. I mean, the fixes are quite nice, you know, if you look at how fine the traces are. Yeah, someone's done quite a good job. And I'm guessing those caps would have been on the underside from factory, I'm not sure. That might be to accommodate the socket, actually. And there's more fixes here. Yeah, that socket wouldn't have been on there from factory. So, anyway, let's just see what happens if I reflow that pin, but the solder points kind of look alright here. Yeah, that solder point, it was on that one with the label there, CBM, Figel, I think, PAL. And it looks like these have been reflowed by someone else as well, so I might just need to just go over those a second time. Alright, so a jump cut later, after I had problems with the battery, the SD card, my camcorder went flat, my phone went flat, everything's going wrong here. Anyway, to try and resolve the intermittency with this, I ultrasonicked this area here. Yeah? After ultrasonicking it, it wouldn't work at all. It's doing the same as the other one where it says Janus library failed to load or something. So you can see the pins are a bit wiggly here. They're a bit green. You can see I've just desoldered the pins there. I'm just about to lift this socket off. Because the whole reason to ultrasonic this, there was lots of corrosion around here. And these two chips, looks right underneath. But yeah, these two chips had a few, we can see the socket looks a bit greeny. Pins will go back in if I do reuse it. I may just put a new socket on actually. But anyway, I figure I'm going to have to, because I've tried everything here. I've just cleaned around things, reseated things, tried the chips from the other board here. It just doesn't work. Even slid the jumpers up and down, inspected the fixed points and things here. Nothing's been adversely affected, but clearly something else. So it's got to be one of the wires or traces under this area here that was just barely hanging on is now broken, maybe. I scoped these crystals here because I hear what you're saying. You're going ultrasonic, can damage crystals. They're all right. We've got one 9.6 megahertz, I think, and the other one's 16 or something like that. So it doesn't make any sense to me at all. It doesn't make any sense unless whatever the issue was is now got worse. But it's interesting that the fault with this one is now the same as the other one, in that the Janus library doesn't load. So I don't know, has this developed a secondary fault? Anyway, you can see, yeah, I've just made a mess of that. The pads are alright and everything, but anyway, we've got that off. So I can inspect and clean underneath, check the wires, etc. But I'm just going to keep working my way. I'll do the other one there, and then I'm going to work my way through these resistor packs. I may just do these two resistor packs next, actually. You see, the thing is, I think this stuff here is just to do with the floppy drive interface primarily. It could be wrong, you know. Sometimes you get one trace run through a resistor pack or something like that for something else, and this is the thing. There are schematics for this, I've got them, but the board is that packed and everything's so small component-wise, you know, pin density and on the chips, main chips and stuff. It's going to be near impossible. I actually think I'm calling this a fail now. I've given up, if I'm honest. I'm giving up on this. I honestly don't believe I'm going to fix this, and I'm not even going to bother with the other one because it's a mystery fault. Yeah, when Janus library doesn't load, why? Where's the clue? You know, is it the PC side not starting? Is there a problem with the interface to the Amiga side? I'm more inclined to think it's going to be something to do with the interface to the Amiga. Yeah, like one of the Commodore customs. But then, I don't know. There's no real documentation that explains that from what I can see. You know, I don't think anyone's reverse engineered it to the point where there's any useful info out there on how to diagnose faults with these. So, you know, what I'm faced with is trying to scope absolutely everything on there, test every single bit of connectivity, and the traces are so fine, I don't want to do it. I'm calling it now. I'm saying I don't want to do it. Had I known how difficult these are to work on, I would have not offered to look at them, to be honest. If anyone wants to send me another one of these, nope, I don't want to do it. I'm not even sure I would want to buy one of these in this state and try and fix it. I mean, if I bought one of these myself and no one's tinkered with it, you know what, I might have a go. But the thing is, someone's been here before us. I'm now faced with having to undo everything he's done. And I'll tell you why. I removed this chip and just had a look at the pins. Yeah, just touched them. And there's one here that's a bit loose, and there's a trace right next to it. Is it supposed to go to the trace or not? I don't know. Why is the pad loose? Is it a not used pad? This is the thing. I don't know, because I didn't remove it. So I'm going to have to remove that. And there's lots of fixed wires under and around it that go to the socket. He's mounted it with hot air. I think what he's done is use solder paste, you know, heat from the underside here and put it on that way. But you see, when you do that, because the base is there, you can't see all the stuff he's done underneath it. So it might seem like a really clever, intelligent way of doing it, but it isn't unless you're thorough around everything. If he'd been thorough and removed all this stuff here, and all the stuff sort of up here, because some of these things are affected and yet they haven't been removed. There's white pins on that's not been removed. So this is the thing, and I'm not blaming the person who looks at this, because you know what, they're so, like I said, packed density wise with things, and the traces are so fine, they're so time consuming. This is the thing, this is why I don't want to continue fixing with this. If it's not going to be somewhat around this area now that I find as we remove these resistor arrays, then I'll be giving up on it, because I have spent the last 4 months doing corrosion repairs. I don't want to do any more corrosion repairs. I've had enough of them. My patience and determination's finally run out. I've had enough. I have had enough. And that extends to my channel in general. Actually, it's like I am at the moment days or hours away from just jacking it all in, which might seem really negative, and you know what it is, but it's not like I make masses of profit doing this. Why is that moving there? I think we might have a pin broke on that array, you know. That may explain why it's not working, because all these pins are moving, that one isn't. Yeah, the resistor array is moving freely, so it could just be balked array. I can't even see what's going on with that pin. No, it's moving now, so well, let's just try and pull that off. Let's just see where the dot is. The dot is to the right hand side, and there's a line on the array. I can't even get under that. There we go. So there's no pad damage or anything, but it's kind of like green on there. Yeah, the pads there kind of look alright, but again, dark wires and things all around. I just find it too strange that just ultrasonic in that bit there, and then we get a big problem. Can you see down there? It's like really crusty on the top of that. So let's get that one off next. Yeah, the other thing is I don't have a working one. I was hoping I could get this working, and what's just happened has just made me go, nah, there's no point continuing. Because if this one's now doing the same as the other one, I've got zero chance, really, without spending a stupid amount of hours trying to work out the cause here. You've got a working card, totally different. You can measure things, you can measure signals, you can compare boards, you can swap chips. You know, that's the thing. I would be prepared to remove the customs from this to put on the other one if this worked, in order to diagnose the other one. Because I feel comfortable as long as I don't go overboard with temperature. It should be alright. I may even socket one of these up. If I was keeping one of these myself, I would do that, but I mean, these are both going back to Stefan. I don't know what he's going to do with them. I mean, I think as things stand, they're going to be for spares, to be honest. Yeah, can you see that? It's fuzzy. Green along the tops. So, yeah, let me have a look what size that one is. 33 ohm. Let's check the other one. 33 ohm. Well, at least I can't mix those up. So hopefully you can see it is white and furry, but everything looks alright. Right, I pulled the black one off. Can you see all the white furriness down there as well? Right, so the socket is cleaned up. It was very superficial. There was hardly anything on it. On the underside as well, and obviously I pushed the pins back in to straighten it. The resistor arrays, we've got a 4K7 resistor array, and those little ones are not 33 ohm. They're 3.3Ks, those not 33 ohms. Anyway, legs cleaned up on them, all tested. Cleaned up all around here, and further back everything looks alright, actually. So I think it's a red herring. I think whatever's failed is just a common fault on these when they've been corrosion damaged. It could be the vibrations from the ultrasonic affecting a wire somewhere else, like under this, you know, or under here or something that's been patched, that's just had the smallest particle of solder joining something on. I mean, it looks a state here, doesn't it? Bear in mind, I think this may have had a conformal coating over this area, but like the battery contact's still there. I had to resolder one or two pins here that barely had any solder on. We've got a wire there. Now you may think, oh, that's really nice. I thought that looks really good and tidy, but it's over the top of a trace that runs under it. Yeah, it's enamelled on top. You get inductive coupling when you run traces over the top of the traces like that. That might be a problem. So I might need to redo that. I don't know. Anyway, as I say, I'm not trying to be critical. Although I am being critical. I'm not trying to be critical of the person who's done the work on this, because I know he's a really good guy, and the work he's done, despite the fact I'm pointing out these issues here, you know, other people would make those mistakes. I make some of those mistakes, you know, in terms of, you know, trying to do an expedited repair here and not spending hours and hours and hours removing the stuff I've removed here. You could argue this isn't pointless. This might make no difference. Might not be the problem. Probably isn't, because I haven't actually found an issue here other than just some furriness under this stuff. Anyway, I'm going to start to get this stuff back on, I think. We'll do the socket last, and I'll just start installing things in the order that I took them off, reverse order. There's no fixes here, they're all sort of round there really. In fact, there's very few on this board, on this side at least. The other board's got quite a number more of fixed wires. Yeah, I think you'll agree, that's not looking too bad. Just need to inspect, because I see a giant blob of solder there. What's that? There we go. So let's go and give it another try. Looking at the repair logs that Stefan passed over with these, I don't think this is the issue. There's two data buffers here, and I've ordered some RAM, by the way, for here, and I think it's just video RAM, but I want to rule it out anyway. Here we've got two 7-foot F245s, and the solder points are crusty as anything. Now, as I said, the repair log that came with this said that those had been reflowed. Someone had bodged up around there. But this is the chip here that was floating off the PCB. So I figure, why not just rule these out properly? Because whilst they were reflowed, we don't know. Well, we know the solder points look awful. They still look awful in my mind. But what we don't know is, did someone change them or not? And the behaviour, you know, these on the data bus side here, the Amiga uses these to talk to these chips, I think, or one of those chips. So you never know, it could just be something as simple as a problem here. The fact the solder points don't look great makes me wonder what's gone on underneath, and why were they removed or replaced or reflowed or whatever originally. Did corrosion get down this far? You know, is there an intermittent trace under there? Because this is the thing, we don't really know, do we? There are no real, well, there's clues. This is a clue. Yeah, and there is the odd dodgy sort of looking pad around that, if I'm completely honest, and you know, this is again a motivating factor for me to consider just getting these off, get a socket on. Solder. There we go. Hang on a minute, let's not wrench it off just in case there's a pad here. No, there isn't. So anyway, that chip came off with very little heat. Yeah, looking around, like, you can see there are one or two dark pads. That one there looks a bit dark, the one down here looks a bit dark. Anyway, let's get a socket on there. And it's another one of these that's all the more strange to me, that if someone took that off originally, why not socket it? I don't get it. What is it? Well, people don't like sockets. I know some people think sockets give you less reliability. That is not my experience at all. It can be, if you get the wrong kind of socket on, you know, you got a chip with really short legs, etc. going in there, yeah, it might make a bad connection. But with something like that, you know, you're going to be putting a brand new 74 LS, F245 in there. It's got nice long legs. Why not just give it a socket? I'm not even sure if there's still a pad there, you know. That could have been the issue from when it was originally replaced, maybe. Yeah, inspecting magnification, there are a few half pads there actually. This is what the issue is. So like from a previous removal, I would assume, because this is not going to fault solve it, I don't think, because someone's replaced it before. The pad there is kind of like missing. It doesn't go anywhere on this side, so that's not a problem. And that one's half a pad. Yeah, so that one's kind of like half a pad, and that one's removed. But like I say, it's not on the chip. It's not on the chip. That's from a prior removal. Anyway, I want to get a socket. Did exactly the same thing with that one. No damage around that one. The pads are all fine. No signs of any corrosion or anything. So I think someone has attempted to do what I was theorising here. You know, is the data bus side on this perhaps booked previously? So it may not reveal anything. Anyway, we'll get a socket there, and then I'll try 2 new chips. Right, I'm not sure if I mentioned that one of the pins down here looked a bit loose earlier on. After ultrasonics here, you know, this is when the problem's just not booting at all. So I've tried a lot of stuff here, plugged a load of wires here. Obviously we did all the stuff here with resistor arrays and removing things and stuff. We removed the buffers, I reflowed that chip again, reflowed that chip entirely, this chip here on these sides because it looked a bit crusty. Thoroughly cleaned it, inspected it, goodness knows how many times, and finally I thought I'm going to pull the base out of this. So I cut the base out, and lo and behold, there's like 4 connections up there that are not connected to the vias. Yeah, they're just like floating around. So that's what the issue is. I think the ultrasonic finished off loose connections here. That's what it was. Well, we don't know until we fix it, do we? Is it going to do anything at all? It could be beyond still. But anyway, I'm going to now just use some coil wire to try and fix those connectors there. Let me just put you on a macro. Yeah, I can't really get the angle here, but just trust me. You see that one? Wobbling, it's detached from the trace. Same with that one, I think, or that one. A few of these here, though, let's say you just press it and it wobbles and the trace is gone. So the amazing thing is, after about 3 or so days, I worked out why this was not working after the ultrasonic. Yeah, it was that socket. Yeah, after removing the base there, cutting the base out and checking everything around there, I fixed the 3 or 4 connections and it still wasn't working. I'm like, it must be that socket. So of course there are traces that run underneath it and go outwards, downwards to the bottom of the PCB where the 245 is. Now I did a bit of research and actually found some like images of the Gerbers of the top and bottom. I thought, oh, I can use those. I zoomed in, but they were like really blocky and it was really hard to see what was going where. But then I thought, well, hang on a minute. Someone in this thread had mentioned that they'd been put on Amiga PCB Explorer without permission. There was a few people kicking off. Let me just reset that. And the reason it's doing that, by the way, is there's no VGA. That beep code is because there's no VGA. Which is, yeah, the next issue with this. Something I've worked out for. Now I've got a VGA card, and that came from Glenn over at CRG. Amazing guy. He's an Irish chap. Check out his channel, there'll be a link down below. I'll talk about Glenn a little bit later in the video, but Glenn kindly provided me a VGA card. I asked on my Discord, has anyone got a cheap VGA card? Do you know what? The funny thing with that is, I had in mind, I wanted a Trident, and I wanted the one I originally had with my old 286, my first PC that I built myself when I was in the trade. And lo and behold, he sent me the exact model. I didn't tell him. He's just said, I've got a card that I've had knocking around for ages, you can have it. And he didn't want any money for it or anything, even for shipping, which is fantastic. That is really, really, really good of him. You know, it saved me about 40 quid-ish, probably. Maybe a tiny bit more with shipping. But yeah, that is just brilliant. That is exactly what I wanted. It's only got like, is it a 9000 chip on it or something? And it's only got, I don't know, 512k RAM or something like that, or 256k RAM. But it's fine for what I want. Anyway, the reason I wanted that is because I theorised that before this was completely balked due to the ultrasonic, that the instabilities might actually be caused by the isobus. Yeah, so there's nothing in the isobus. Yeah, but what I mean is buffering somewhere on this card to the ISO slots. Yeah, that might, and that's what I'm going to experiment with next. But the reason I thought that and ordered that VGA, well, asked Glenn for that VGA card, was to test the VGA interface. And you know what? It doesn't work. Yeah. That's the next clue. So I fixed the trace from the socket using Amiga PCB Explorer that leads down to the 245, and that's the next part of the puzzle here. I'm like, maybe it's that 245. Now that's not ISA-bus related, but it's to do with the communication channel, I think, between these two ICs here, and something that goes down there. It may go to the edge of the slot. In fact, the one that goes to the slot I'm thinking about is down here, not the one that's down there. Yeah, there's two 245s. But nevertheless, I'll try and show you this. I'll show you that it is working again, but that beep code is because yesterday I enabled VGA in the BIOS. And this is the other interesting thing now. I can't seem to reset it, because what it's doing, it's looking for a VGA card that isn't there. Maybe I can actually get into settings. Let's have a look. PC mono. It did boot there, look. Yeah, and this is the thing. See this garbage thing here? This is the other clue, you know, why do we get this garbage? So this, I am theorised the possibility here, and I've ordered the parts for this as well. It could be the RAM, yeah, not the PC RAM, the 64K chips that are used, I think, to pass, you know, the video between one side and the other. I actually think it's primarily video RAM. That's how it works. The Amiga is able to punch a hole into the video RAM and go, oh, I'll just take a snapshot of that and send it back to you. Yeah, I think that's how that works. Let's try it again. The other clue here, I'll show you this as well. Something else I noticed, if you change in here, config, just change that Janus handle load segment and do save. Yeah, then you've got to reset it. And this is consistent behaviour. Yeah, reset it. Often, if you're lucky, you'll just get a flashing cursor. We're not doing. So I'll change it back again. Change it to anything. So let's put colour back enabled again, because those are both disabled, aren't we? All disabled mono. Put it on colour. Maybe we can force it to reset the BIOS settings, I'm not sure. And I might now be stuck in this loop. I'm not discounting that. Yeah, and I think the reason is because I'm not, for some reason, I'm not able to reset the BIOS settings. So now it's set, even though there's no battery. It seems to think it's got a VGA card. Tell you what, let me switch it off. Let's remove the VGA card. Anyway, so now booting without a VGA card, I'll show you this other board. The other thing is, it's given me some positive thoughts about this board, actually, because the connection that was missing was a data bit down here, and the reason it was causing a problem, even though it was just related to this, it's not like this could not be communicated with. That wasn't the issue. There was like a connection from somewhere like here to there, or something like that. No, it's right, it was here from there to that, to somewhere else. So it's like this could communicate with that fine, but it couldn't communicate with whatever this was going to here. And it's like, you know, a data bus, an actual data bus somewhere. So when you've got a data bit connection missing, all bets are off. It's not going to boot, is it? It's going to absolutely crash out. And that was the issue. It's like, say, a trace from, I think, the third or fourth pin down here to the second, I think, data bit down on this chip here. It's the top side there, which I don't know whether that's... That could have even been a control signal, actually, thinking about it. I know it's not. Isn't it pin 1 and pin 19 or something on these? I can't honestly remember which way around it is now. Yeah, looking at it that way, I think it might be. I think it might be the output labels and directions and stuff. I think pin 1 and 19, and then 20 is VCC, and the others are the inputs and outputs, or A and B side, I should say, really. But then I looked back at the schematics again. So this I'm thinking it could be an issue. Yeah, because the reason it's now working is because the trace is in place. Yeah, but this could be balked. Yeah, that could be part of the problem. But the other possibility is the other 245 here sits, I think, in between these two. I think maybe it might be in between one of these and one of those on an 8-bit data bus somewhere again. I think it's an SD. I don't know what that is. But I was looking at what goes to the slot here, and it's like SA address bus SD. So if this had a problem, you wouldn't be able to communicate with the slot. Yeah, anything on the slot just wouldn't work. And that's what's happening. VGA card not detected at all. I put that VGA card into the 2386, which again the video will be top right for that. I don't know if you've seen that or not, and it works. The video card works, but it doesn't here. And as I said, the final piece of the puzzle really was enabling VGA, and then we start getting that beep code, which is because it can't actually output any video. Now you'll notice it didn't do it there. Video card's not in now, so yeah, big red flag really. My concern though is the problem is if it's not one of those 245s and it's not a trace, and I can buzz that stuff out using Amiga PCB Explorer now, then the problem is going to be one of those customs actually, and it would seem to relate to the ISA bus, wouldn't it? That is what the issue is with this. This is why this flake booting like this is because it's having a problem with the bus. But you see now it's booting, now it says reset the CMOS because obviously the VGA card's not there. So yeah, we're making some positive progress with this. But the behaviour with this now is rock solid in the sense that once you can get a boot, if this, it might not need boot, I might need reset, but once you get a boot, it will boot from floppy, alright. You can then do Control-Alt-Delete, that works alright, but then it freezes. And this is the thing, it's at this point here, after the memory test, where things go wrong. And it's also at that point there where if you had a VGA card in, the VGA would spring up, you know, as soon as you do a power on, yeah? And it doesn't happen, there's no VGA. It doesn't matter whether the VGA is enabled in the BIOS or not. So it's got to be the ISA expansion bus related. Anyway, without further ado, the next thing I'm going to do, I've only just got up, I'm pretty tired, but I was keen to just get back on with this and see if we can solve this issue. Because if we can, this card will then be working 100% and it just needs a tidy up really. You can see that that's the floppy connector there with pin 1 to the left when you're using you know, an actual you know, like 1.44 floppy drive or 1.2 meg one, and you need the twist. That's the other thing. Just like I think the 2386, you need the twist on the you know, driver 0. I said DF0A on the A drive on these. We're not talking Amiga anymore when it's PC stuff, are we? Yeah, so which one should we swap? I'm thinking this one, actually. I'm going to get some Captain Safe board up there and just use hot air to remove that, get a socket on and replace that. And my theory is, as I say, it's not, the trace is now in place, which is why it boots. But if this is not working properly, yeah, maybe that bit was damaged because the corrosion was around here. Yeah, and it's obviously the corrosion was around there because that's one of the pins that broke that goes to this. Yeah, and if you've got a short between 2 pins and that data bit on this side here fails, yeah, when it's communicating in one specific direction, it's trying to maybe read through onto that pin or something, and it doesn't get any data on that one bit, yeah, you've got a problem. And if that is related to something to do with the ISA side of things, that would be a problem. But it might be more likely to be this one. I honestly don't know, but I couldn't see anything else that goes really is related to the SD, the data for the slot, and the SA, you know, address bus connections for the slot. So yeah, it could just be a balked custom there. And there's the wire. So I've ended up with one additional wire, and obviously, you know, I put the plastic base back in there, so nothing's lost. The card's nice and tidy now. I did get a brand new chip for here, but I put back the old one in, and that works. So it ain't that. And yeah, that was totally reflowed a second or third time actually, and this was completely as well. And I think this side here. Yeah, and then super clean, so it's you know, at least it's in exactly the same condition it came to me. Yeah, so it wasn't that 245, it's still doing the same thing where this is what it does, it gets into this instability loop where you reset it and it resets, and then one out of every so many resets it will actually boot. So I relocated my Captain Taper there. So no pad damage or anything there, just need to unblock the odd hole, clean up around it with a cotton bud and get a socket on. Again, I'm thinking the more chance here, that was like 40% chance I reckon. This one here, I'm kind of inclined to think 60. But we can take what we've learned about this board and what we can experiment with this board, in other words removing these, remove that, see what happens, remove that, see what happens, remove a pal, see what happens, etc, etc, to learn about the other one. Well, it doesn't appear to be that. Well, the interesting thing is I sprayed contact clean around the 8042 and I extended the legs out, and it's a terrible socket. I think that's the next thing. I think that socket needs replacing, and it booted and it beeped for the first time ever, and it just worked on the first boot. It's booting from floppy. Oh, hang on a minute, but we've got messed up video here. Now, this is, I say, a clue. Is it this RAM? Is it the video RAM that is used to pass data between the Amiga side and the PC side? It could well be, but we're still getting no VGA, so you know what, I'm thinking maybe it isn't that. Anyway, I think perhaps the next logical thing, you know, it was just guesswork this at the moment, the next logical thing is perhaps replace that socket for the 8042. You know, it's like an Intel MCU. Because that socket is crap, it really is. I'm not even sure if it's dual wipe. Right, I've took it out, and let's see if it'll boot without it. I doubt it. And the other clue when you're working on one of these as well is watch the IDE carefully. You know, after you've got the Janus software installed, obviously, one of the things it does when it boots up, it initialises Janus. Yeah, that responded really quick. Oh, hang on a minute, I've got to check somewhere. Right? Probably because I've been messing with the combat flashcard there. Let's just try that again. Yeah, watch the LED, because when you hear click, yeah, if the LED goes off and then you get an extended, you know, the LED's no activity, no activity, no activity, you know Janus is not loaded. Yeah, it will not respond. The card is not responding. Yeah, to comms with Janus. If it goes click, and then literally 1 second later, flash, 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 flash. I mean, this is obviously with a 50 megahertz 030, so it might be slightly longer if you're using a different CPU. But the bottom line is you'll notice a difference there. Yeah. And if it continues to boot really quick after the click, you know that actually the initial communication has been successful, and then you won't get the Janus library failed to load. At least when you're able to see the PC side, you know you've got something to work with, haven't you? You know that the backbone of the PC stuff seems mostly alright. Anyway, that chip's not on there. It booted and stuff, so let's see. We might get an error here. Yeah, so clearly that is pretty important. Let's try a PC reset. Yeah, well, at least you can see that's the behaviour. If you just get a black screen like that, yeah, it's probably something to do with that chip. Well, it could be something to do with that chip. There's going to be lots of things that cause that type of behaviour. Let's try PC prefs. Let's do don't load. Okay, PC reset, PC colour. PC mono. Now here's that thing with the garbage, you know, why do we get this like this? I mean, alright, PC mono's not set up. Is that why? Because it's looking at the wrong area of RAM, it's looking at RAM that's not initialised as a monochrome display. But sometimes you get that, even with PC colour. Maybe there's a missing connection there. It might be that now it's not there. Obviously we're getting the black screen, but when it's there we get the problems with it hanging and all that sort of stuff. But you get one pin on here that's something to do with something else that's not as critical as the whole chip missing, yeah? And then suddenly you get weird stuff. So maybe I should swap that socket. I think before we do that, I'll just do what I tried before. This is what, when we had the beep. I've never had a beep on boot like this did. I'm just going to just bend these outwards like that, all together in a line. Just deliberately spread them, because then when I put it into that socket, it's just going to make more of a connection with the outside edge. Because the thing is here, and you may experience this now as I put this in, this socket, I don't know, you can see it's square holes. It's one of these awful ones. I actually think that's a single wipe. I don't think that's dual wipe. And yeah, so like one side is in now, and we're going to have to, as we push that slightly in, we're going to have to lever it to the side a little bit in order to get those pins lined up with the holes, I think. It helps if I've not got that cable attached, obviously. Gosh, oh. There we go. So now it's kind of springing itself in, but it didn't feel like there were any resistance on any individual pin. It just kind of felt like it was one pin or two pins were just sort of holding it in place. And this is the thing. I don't think that socket has been replaced. No, it's frozen there again, look. And of course the other thing with this is it hasn't got a battery. This could be a consequence of the fact it's losing a few bits or something in the CMOS configuration. But then again, it does a CMOS checksum, doesn't it? To make sure that that's not happened and that's not popping up. I think just for laughs and giggles and things at the moment, I might get the other 1 meg in. And give this 2 meg extended. Just see, does it go beyond 1 meg? I don't know. Is it going to be relevant? No idea. but the other card ain't doing anything at the moment, is it? It may do. Well, now we know what we know here, we've got a few things we can look at on the other card to try and work out maybe what's going on the other card. Because this is the thing, now we know that traces from here that don't get down here result in no boot at all, no Janus communication. It could be something as simple as that, just a misconnection down to this. So I've got things I can test on that card now to rule out that kind of thing. And then if the other one maybe gets working, then we might be in a situation where I can actually swap the customs over just to actually prove. Well, the weird thing was that had another successful boot and beep, and then straight into the floppy drive look. I didn't do anything there apart from install an extra meg, which isn't detected at the moment because it's not enabled in the BIOS. So, I don't know. Is it mapping that RAM differently because there's more of it? No, we've lost the video again. And this is the thing, when it does the beep thing, this is when the video gets messed up. How weird is that? There's definitely a pattern though, there's definitely some clues here. And then I'm guessing it's going to freeze again here. No, it's booting again. Wow, that's strange. Alright, let's just try pressing Control Alt Escape. Let's go in here. I'm going to set these things anyway, so it's 6. Let's go to, yeah, it's allowing that now. Oh, and it's not. That's interesting. Why is it only allowing up to 1408? Let me just see the bottom of the screen here. Warning, reduce onboard X memory to allow Janus to be shadowed. Total DRAM on the Bridgeboard 2048. There isn't. There was 2048 before. So, I don't know, that's a bit strange, isn't it? And it says reduce it to allow X memory to allow Janus to be shadowed. Well, I mean, I've learned something else there. Hang on. Yeah, as soon as you go over 1024, that's when you get that error, that message. But why isn't the extra meg being picked up? But yeah, there is an end key. Anyway, let's press that. So I need to investigate why that third meg, technically, isn't being picked up. But you see, now we're back to the freeze thing, not doing anything, no beep, no floppy drive. Yeah, so I've changed the memory so that Janus is not shadowed. We're using a full extended memory and it actually booted after that. The extra 1 meg, we've got 3 meg on here now, it's not detected. And I think the reason being is because it's in banks, isn't it? You can have 1 meg, yeah, it's like half a bank, and you can have 2 meg, yeah, which is a full bank if you like. And then you can't have 3 meg because that's 1.5 banks. I think we need to fill the other 4 slots, and I do have some of those chips myself somewhere. And then go to 4 meg. So I think your options are 1 meg, 2 meg, or 4 meg. I think. But I mean, the key with this is about how consistent this is. I'm just trying different things here. So I've used all the extended memory, we've disabled the Janus shadowing, see if it's any more reliable. So we'll see if the video is right here, and it is. And I'm going to press Control Alt Delete, reboot it mid activity, because often it will freeze after a Control Alt Delete. If we get to a point somewhere when I'm doing testing where we can just Control Alt Delete, then we know we've solved it. But you see, look, this is the thing. It's like, why would that be an issue? Why would Control Alt Delete be an issue? Unless something's not getting a reset. I mean, that's a possibility. There could be a trace somewhere where something, some device, some IC isn't getting a reset. That would perhaps explain what is going on. But then you'd think, if that was the case, then how does doing a reset eventually seem to fix it? That is the mystery. It's interesting as well, isn't it? It's like in soft reset mode here, so we're not getting the memory test now because I did a Control Alt Delete. Not sure if there's switches for that PC reset where you can, force it to wipe the CMOS, whether you can force it to do a hard reset or a soft reset or whatever. But you can see the situation we're in right now. Oh, hang on, look, there we go. Invalid configuration information now. Why would that be? Configuration hasn't changed. That makes me think it's about the CMOS settings. And that could be the case because intermittently you can go into setup here like this, Control Alt Escape, and you can just, I don't know, change something and save it. I mean, I don't see anything wrong there. Everything looks right. Press 1 to end, and then often it will just boot after you've been in there. Which could provide a clue that maybe it's the CMOS memory. I don't know. but maybe not, because I think that's frozen again, look. Don't know, it's really, really weird, it's doing my head in. The other thing is, if you run some software on it, that software can run for hours and hours and hours without an issue. Right, that socket is coming off, it's awful. Right, having to resort to using the phone again. So I fixed all of these wires down here, all plugged. There's just the odd one at the edges. I don't know, you can see there might be, there's like one or two down here or something. I can plug those later because they're outside the socket, and one there, it's on the very edge maybe. But anyway, tested all connectivity here, and it looks alright. It looks a bit blobby, but you know what, it's not going to be an issue. And it's the same on the other side, so we've got nice beads of solder on either side here. And I'm going on with one of these sockets deliberately without a bridge in the middle, just so that I can actually see those things, access the points there, should there be some sort of problem. Anyway, I'll get that socket on, and we'll just see if it's any more stable. Probably not. Right, we're on the phone again. As you can see, video RAM test failed. That was using Check-It, I think. Now, it may be that this test can't test properly on here. It says this 4K video RAM. I had a look at interrupts and things like that, and everything else in there doesn't even list the VGA card, which is fitted at the moment. Now, I changed a couple of jumpers. I changed this 3 jumpers J9, which put it in 8-bit mode. Tried that to make a difference, and I tried one of the jumpers on the top that you can just about see there, little yellow ones, for something that I can't remember. I'll stick it top left. It didn't make any difference. We still don't have VGA, but nevertheless, we do seem to have some sort of issue with the 4K of video RAM there, which I think sits in this shared 128K RAM here. At the moment I'm piggybacking one of the 257s actually, but anyway, I don't think that's the issue. Yeah, and the main memory checks out all alright. Looking at the list of interrupts, the VGA card's not recorded at all. So this is the thing, it's like, so we've got this video issue. Now I've ordered some of the zip RAM to replace this with. We'll give it a try. Maybe it'll solve all the problems, but I don't understand why it's not seeing that VGA card. If I remove this 386 card and put the 286 card in, it detects that card, no problem. Yeah, and outputs VGA. If you go into the BIOS settings on here and change it to VGA, it just beeps like 2 or 3 times in a different pattern there to indicate there's no VGA output, you know, there's no video card. But it only does that when you disable the monochrome and the colour in the prefs thing. But there is this issue with the prefs thing, that when it does this thing where it doesn't boot, if you change the Janus handler address and then change it back, and after a few resets, then it starts working again, which makes me think that it maybe is this RAM, because this RAM is probably what holds those preferences, the settings that go across to you know, the Janus handler, which I think on the PC side comes from this ROM. So the video is running on length a little bit. Join me in part 2, you'll see we'll make some more progress in part 2. It feels like we didn't make much progress in this part really, but we had to do all this stuff, we had to investigate all the prior work that had been done and try and fix what we can see needed fixing, you know, bits of corrosion and stuff, and plug in some of those wires that just hadn't been plugged. As I mentioned in annotations earlier on, it's a 4-layer board. We discover a bit more about that in the next part, as we look at some PCB layouts and things, and that helps me fix some of the issues here. But there's still, you know, a bunch of issues to resolve on both of these cards. So at the end of this part here, the first board we tested is just coming up with Janus, you know, Janus handler failure or something, doesn't even do anything. And the second one, we've got it more stable than it was at the start, a lot more stable, but it suffers from this problem that it'll generally boot every time from cold, and when you do a Control-Alt-Delete or a reset, there's 10%, 20% chance it'll reboot, and at that point it can run for hours and hours and hours, so it's kind of almost there, this card. Massive thanks to Stefan Skotte for sending these to me. I hope you found that interesting. If you'd like to support the channel, please see the Ko-fi and Patreon links down below. Those things are absolutely essential just to help me keep the channel going. I can't thank you all enough for your support. I'll catch you in the next video.